everyone, and welcome to this month's Comfort Book Club discussion of The Blue Castle by L M Montgomery. As always, I'm joined by my mum, Donna.
Hello.
For the Comfort Book Club. And I'm sorry May's discussion has been delayed by a few days. I was under the weather at the start of this week and I've only been able to film now. But we have been looking forward
We have, very much. It's a fabulous read, isn't
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So we've been looking forward to chatting about it, and thank you to everyone who sent in a voice message to add to our discussion. You're always much appreciated. Because I was under the weather, we don't have any baked treats today.
It's incredibly sad.
Yes, just a cup of tea.
Yes.
We'll have to do.
Yeah.
But that's always very welcome. And I was really looking forward, like I've said, to chatting about this because it is a real favourite comfort read.
It was a reread probably about the third time for you, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yes.
And it's just such a sweet, funny, romantic novel. It's a real favourite. And I know a lot of people, of course, know the Anne of Green Gables series by L M Montgomery, which is so famous.
Yeah.
Fewer people know The Blue Castle, but I think when you come to read it, it so often becomes a favourite for
I think
many
so.
people.
I think the people that haven't read it before, I think many of you said how much you enjoyed it, and that's very special.
Yes, and we heard from one reader, Heather, who told us it was her first time reading The Blue Castle, which was really lovely to hear. So let's hear Heather's experience of reading The Blue Castle for the first time.
Hi, Miranda and Donna and members of the Comfort Book Club. This is Heather from Maine, who had the great fortune to read this book while on a family vacation in Spain. We even visited the Alhambra a couple of chapters before Barney declared his intention of taking Valency there, it being the closest thing to her blue castle. A wow moment for me. I love this book, the characters, the plot, but what really stands out to me is Montgomery's nature writing, especially the brief sentenced paragraphs on winter that begin with December, early snows, and Orion, the pale fires of the Milky Way. I am enchanted, and now wishing to pick up more of her non-Anne novels. Pat of Silverbush might be next. Thank you, Miranda and Donna, for introducing me to this side of L M Montgomery.
Oh, you're welcome, Heather. So glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was wonderful, yes.
It's lovely that it's inspired you to perhaps read some more non-Anne books as well.
Yes, I think that's always something. I mean, it made me think I've got to go back and reread the Emily because I believe she was writing when they visited. It's not actually set in PEI, this one. It's set in...
No, it's set in Ontario.
Yes.
I think apparently Deerwood is based on a small town called Bala?
Bala.
B-A-L-A in Ontario. I hadn't heard of it before.
No.
But yes, it's not the typical PEI setting of many of her books. But yes, I think if you enjoyed it, Emily, the Emily trilogy would be lovely to read if you haven't read those yet. Jane of Lantern Hill is
a lovely one.
A really nice one.
For me, I want to reread all the Anne books, which I've read them all as a child and then later on many times. And I'm always a bit surprised that people have only seen the series and they haven't read the books because the books are very special. So.
Yes, all of them. Yes, I know. It made me want to do a reread of them too. I think that would be a fun summer project if possible.
Yes.
But we also heard from one of our readers, Marie, who actually lives on Prince Edward Island, which is always so special to hear from her. So let's hear Marie's message.
Hello everyone, this is Marie from Prince Edward Island, birthplace of Lucy Maud Montgomery, author of The Blue Castle. At the age of 29, Valency Sterling finally breaks free of her overbearing mother and becomes a free spirit. Though described as not being a beauty, this transformation and newfound confidence shows in her face and general appearance. She still doesn't believe that she is beautiful until Barney Snaith, her husband, convinces her that there are other types of beauty than the superficial sort of her cousin Olive. This changes because her soul is able to shine through. In discovering her blue castle, Valency's dreams come true. Thank you for choosing this delightful novel.
Oh, thank you, Marie.
Yes, thank you so much, Marie.
Yeah, so glad that you enjoyed the Blue Castle.
Yeah.
And yes, even though, like we've said, the Blue Castle isn't set on Prince Edward Island, it's also different from a lot of L M Montgomery's books because it was really written with an adult audience in mind.
It was. I think she only did 2 with the adult audience in mind. This is one of them. And oh, it's such a special one, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But so it's quite different, again, from Anne of Green Gables in that way. But I think there are also a lot of parallels to Anne of Green Gables. I thought a lot of Anne as I read about Valency.
Yes, yes.
And just like Anne, Valency has this dream world that she escapes into. Her blue castle is a lot like Anne's dreams, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And Valency has to escape her dreary reality somehow, and that's sort of how she does it.
Yes, yes.
I feel for her because her relations are so uncaring, so awful.
Yes.
And they're very different from Marilla, for instance, who, although quite strict and a bit hard on Anne, especially at the beginning, does have a heart of gold in the end. You really care about her. Whereas with Valency's mother, you don't feel that.
No,
really,
there's a very sad bit at the end, I think, when she's with her husband and they're driving through, and she creeps in to look at her mother and her cousin, and she says that like they're sitting there knitting, but they don't look the least bit lonesome. Otherwise,
she would have
Valency would have gone in. But so she just creeps away. They're entirely self-sufficient. They're not lonesome. They're not unhappy. But they spread misery and gloom about them. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One other thing though that reminded me of Anne of Green Gables is the importance of names in the Blue Castle.
Absolutely.
Anne has such a thing about being called Anne, and that it's a plain name, but she makes the most of it by having the E at the end.
Anne with an E, yes.
Exactly. Yes. And then poor Valency, in fact, likes her name.
She has a beautiful name. It's very poetic, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
But her relations refuse to call her Valency. They all call her Doss.
Such a horrible
nickname. Yeah. And one of our readers again left a voice message, and she commented on the name Doss. So let's hear Gail's message.
Hi Miranda and Donna, this is Gail from Michigan. Thank you for choosing The Blue Castle as this month's selection. It's the first book I've read by L M Montgomery, and I think it's going to inspire me to start reading the rest of the Anne of Green Gables books. I really enjoyed her writing about nature in this book. The 2 things that really drew me in to keep reading was watching Valency's horrible family start getting their comeuppance from her, and to see if Dr. Trent's diagnosis really proved true. Both of these things were resolved satisfactorily. One thing that kept nagging me, though, was the origin of her annoying nickname. Doss doesn't sound anything at all like Valency, and I don't think I missed an explanation for it anywhere in the book. I was just wondering what your thoughts were about it.
Oh, thank you, Gail.
Yes, thank you, Gail.
Your message, and how exciting this was your first Montgomery. I hope you do go on and read the Anne books because we both love them so much.
We do.
But yes, that is interesting about Doss, and I checked and I couldn't see an explanation as to where that came from.
I couldn't either. I mean, it makes me think of, Doss, when they say that, is like, it's almost a sort of, I want to say slang, but if somebody dosses down in the hay, they just lie down to sleep, or it's like
it
not
an
an attractive
Dot or Dotty. It's like almost not a real name.
No, it's not.
Very much some kind of nickname where you feel you might call like a kitten that or something.
Yes, you do.
So you do feel it's
without it being pretty.
It's not pretty.
No.
It is quite infantile, as she says, and they insist upon keeping calling her that name. And somehow I think it lacks affection.
It does somehow, especially when she obviously is asked not to be called it, and they won't listen.
Yeah, exactly.
To her. Yeah.
But her name, Valency Jane Sterling,
Yeah,
you had
says a
some
lot.
interesting points about it, because it actually is a really appropriate name. It says a lot about her
I think so.
character.
Like, I think L M Montgomery's into names, so I don't think we're
Yes.
taking it too far to say, you know, Valency. Well, it made me think of Valiant. She is indeed. She becomes someone who's very brave, and she decides to have no more fear and just go forward, and you can see that. But and it's quite a romantic, fairy tale like name, which, you know, it sort of suits the ugly duckling Cinderella style story. But also, I think when you add Jane to it,
her middle name.
Yes, her middle name. It also speaks of that she is a very practical person. She can nurse. She knows how to run a household. She's a good cook. She, you know, she does all the practical things. She's a good clean of things. And you just think, oh yes, it's so fascinating. And she truly does have those sterling virtues.
Yes.
Like, it's a good
last name for her as
Yeah,
well. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
really true.
Yeah.
All those elements that make up her name.
And of course she also
are-
gives everything a bit of a stir, doesn't she? She
Yes,
certainly
that's true.
stirs
She
up her
stirs the
relatives.
pot, doesn't
Yes,
she? I love all those thoughts on her name, and I think they're very true. But she's a delightful heroine. I think she's one of my favourites.
She is. She's wonderful. She can admit her faults.
Yeah, she does. She admits when she's envious or jealous, and she knows that those aren't good emotions to have, and she strives against them. And she also realizes that her jealousy or envy stems from something that's lacking in herself and in her own life. And it's just wonderful when a letter arrives that changes her life, and she decides to no longer live in fear, and she really seizes life.
She does. She blossoms, doesn't she? It's wonderful
she
to
does.
watch.
And like you said, there's this fairy tale kind of quality to the story. She is an ugly duckling that transforms into a swan, and it is a sort of Cinderella-like experience in a way too, which shows by her clothes as well. I love L M Montgomery's descriptions of clothes.
You always notice that. Yes, she's good on clothes.
She
isn't
is.
She? And the yearning for pretty
The yearning
clothes.
for pretty things and frivolous things. Again, I thought of Anne of Green Gables, when Anne yearns for a dress with puffed sleeves.
Exactly, for Christmas too.
For Christmas, which is a favourite.
Yes.
And Valency, when Barney asks her what she wants for Christmas, says she wants something frivolous.
Yes,
And I love that.
I love that too.
And she delights in buying herself some really impractical shoes and some pretty clothes, just because she has never had pretty things. And actually, she is someone whose soul has yearned for beauty, both in nature but also in the reality of her everyday life and what she wears and what she surrounds herself with.
When she has such an ugly bedroom and it bothers her, and I can really understand
we
that.
love beautiful things
We
too,
do.
and I think it's significant the moment she decides she's changing everything about her life. She picks up that sort of ugly bowl of potpourri and she throws it out the window and it smashes everywhere. It's this wonderful moment when like, she's taking control and seizing power, and she says something like she hates the fragrance of dead things. She gets rid of it, and then her life becomes so full of beautiful living things.
It does.
Which is really special. I love that moment. But I also wanted to share a favourite passage of mine from the book relating to clothes, because I just love L M Montgomery's description of clothes always. And I copied out a favourite passage, so let me read it to you. Valency had taken some of her $200 out of the bank and spent it on pretty clothes. She had a little smoke blue chiffon which she always put on when they spent the evenings at home. Smoke blue with touches of silver about it. It was after she began wearing it that Barney began calling her Moonlight.
Such a much nicer nickname than Doss.
much nicer,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
And we actually had another reader, Faith, who left a voice message, and she particularly commented on what a lovely nickname Moonlight is. So let's hear Faith's message.
Hi, Miranda, Donna, and everyone. This is Faith from Massachusetts. I so enjoyed reading this lovely and whimsical book. There are many favorite passages, but I think my most favorite is the paragraph in which Barney tells Valency why he calls her Moonlight. In my book, it's on page 177, and it starts, "Moonlight and blue twilight, that is what you look like in that dress. I like it, it belongs to you." It's just beautiful and romantic without being sappy. And for me, the words transform Valency's character from an awkward, plain figure to a captivating and enchanting being. And I have to say, I did inform my husband that I'm quite disappointed that in all our years of marriage, he has never once equated me to Moonlight. The Blue Castle is a delight. Thank you for choosing it.
Oh, thank you, Faith.
Thank you, Faith.
And I hope your husband takes the hint. Starts the comparison.
Or the pearls. Don't have him cut your hair. I thought it was very brave.
I love that though.
Yes,
how her
it
transformation is also signalled by, a new hairstyle.
Yes.
And that feels so modern and fresh still.
It does,
really.
and basically it's an urchin sort of cut.
Yeah, it's a
isn't it?
shingle. She
That's
shingles
right,
her hair.
And it's quite shocking.
Yes, so very modern for the 1920s.
Yeah.
And I loved that part.
Yeah.
But I also found it really interesting how when Valency really comes into her own beauty and she makes that transition from ugly duckling to swan, she's very much in a natural setting.
Yes.
And it's like the beauty of her surroundings somehow brings out her own innate beauty of soul and of person.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting to read The Blue Castle in a way that links it to some of my other favourite books, like Father by Elizabeth von Arnhem and Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner, which are about women who move to the countryside and somehow find their true selves and find freedom and sometimes love as well when they go to the countryside.
And health. She's,
health,
from someone who suffered terribly from colds and everything.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a single thing wrong with her.
No, exactly.
Yes.
And it's like her beauty really comes out when she's in nature and she's very much a part of the natural world. In some way. And I love those descriptions. L M Montgomery was an amazing nature writer.
She was, and I love that, the hero is a nature writer, which I think is lovely. And it's interesting, at one point they talk about she and Barney will sit together and read. I think Barney says, let's continue with the Carmen. And I thought at first, what do they mean? I thought, and then I looked at it and thought, oh no, it's spelt differently. And I realised it was Bliss Carman, the Canadian poet, who was very much a nature poet too. So I thought that was really interesting.
I'll have to look up some of those poems.
Yes, they're lovely. Yes,
how nice.
Yeah.
But another of our readers sent a message about how much she loved the nature writing in The Blue Castle as well. So that was Emma. Let's hear Emma's message now.
Hi Miranda and Donna. My name's Emma and I live in the UK. This was my first time reading The Blue Castle and I'm really glad I could read it along with everyone else for this month's book club choice. What I loved most about this book were the delightful descriptions of the Blue Castle and Valency and Barney's island retreat. The nature writing throughout was so beautiful. I earmarked this description of winter because to me it seemed somehow an allegory for Valency's story and the magic we can find in the mundane if we know how to look for it. When the brief afternoon wanes and the sun just touches the tops of the hills, there seems to be all over the woods an abundance, not of colour but of the spirit of colour. There is really nothing but pure white after all, but one has the impression of fairy-like blendings of rose and violet. I could so imagine such a scene in my mind's eye, and it seemed apt that the passage goes on to state that only just when the sun is setting is there a fleeting moment of real colour. I felt this whole charming Cinderella story could be summarised this way. Valency's life of insignificance and drudgery is transformed at the very moment at which she believes the winter of her life to be upon her, and it is only in looking at the blank white sheet of life in a new light that she can see the joy and colour in it. The fluctuating sadness and hopefulness of this novel was made fun by the contributions of Valency's selfish yet comic family. I laughed out loud when the hypocritical Uncle Benjamin criticises Mrs. Frederick for making assumptions about Barney Snaith, saying, "It has always been a mystery to me why people should be ready to invent and circulate slanders about other people they know absolutely nothing about." All in all, I so enjoyed this book for its fun and for its irresistibly hopeful tale. Thank you so much for choosing it for May's book club read.
Oh, thank you, Emma.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma. And that is a lovely passage that you shared, isn't
Yes,
it?
it really is such a beautiful description
Yeah.
of winter, and I love everything that you said about the book as well. The nature writing is so wonderful, and it is a lovely Cinderella story. And I like that it has that aspect of fairy tale, not only because of Valency's sort of Cinderella transformation, but also that Barney is a bit of a prince in disguise.
Definitely,
in the book,
yes,
isn't
yes,
he? And,
yes.
you find out who he really is.
Yeah,
at the end as
and
well.
I love the way that the sort of love of nature and the way that Valency's at one with nature is also reflected with like the way you see her. She has a rose bush, and I think one of our readers also has commented.
That's right. Myriam sent in a message about this, so let's hear Myriam's message.
Hi, my name is Myriam from Big Bear Lake, California. I really like this book and couldn't put it down. There are a lot of great items to discuss in this book, but the one that stood out for me the most was a similarity between Valency's life and the rose bushes. She worked so hard and tended to that rose bush, but the roses never bloomed. Once she let go of her fears and need to please everyone and tore up those bushes, they started to bloom, just as her life did when she started to live her own life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Myriam.
Thank you, Myriam.
And yes, that's so true. And I loved that scene where Valency just attacks the rose bush.
Yes, gives it a good prune.
In the book. And in fact, it's so funny, I found anyway, all of those bits where Valency really decides that she's not going to be fearful of her ghastly relations anymore. And she starts speaking her mind to
I find it hilarious too. You're not the only one. It really is wonderful.
I know, absolutely hilarious. I love those parts of the book. But coming back a bit to this theme of nature as well, you also spoke about the importance of religion when we were chatting about the book earlier, and how that links a bit to Valency's feelings about the natural world.
Absolutely. I mean, there's one bit, and I think it's Barney describes the pine trees as being like a cathedral-like. And I think that's very, very significant. Like her feelings about religion change. She's been so terrified by the reverend in the Anglican church who thought she was a boy and made her take her hat off, and that was really traumatic. And obviously, like she's still terrified of him as a 29-year-old. And you realise there's been no kindness in the religion in her life at all. But she changes with seeing the sort of faith that someone like Sissy Gay has, and the kindness of the three Methodist minister who's obviously like not respected in the town. He sort of comes over the lake and preaches in the woods, but there's
a simplicity to his faith and his message that really speaks to her
very much.
And I think that really connects to the happiness and joy that she finds in living a simple life. But enjoying those small pleasures of everyday life, and that's something that really speaks to me.
Very
from the
much,
book, because that's so much what we believe in as well. You know, making the most of small things that can bring so much joy to your life, and happiness is an incredibly important theme to this book. What makes you happy, how you can make yourself happy. And another of our readers, Laura, sent in a lovely message about this theme of happiness in the book. So let's listen to Laura's message.
Hello, Miranda. Hello, Donna. This is Laura from Italy. I didn't know the Blue Castle, and it was such a lovely surprise. I enjoyed every single page of this book. One of my favorite passages is in chapter 30, where Valency found her happiness had stained backward and flooded with rose color her whole previous drab existence. She found it hard to believe that she had ever been lonely and unhappy and afraid. I find it such a deep thought, especially because her happiness is based on very simple things: being in contact with nature, enjoying the company of someone you love, reading your favorite books, playing with your pets. It is such an uplifting message about the power of happiness.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. And you're so right, it's such an uplifting book. I think
Yes,
that's
it
really
is.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I certainly found it so
Yeah.
as well. And
Yeah.
yes, I love all those descriptions of small joys, but there's a really big happiness
Yes.
that they can bring, and that is such a key message in the book. And of course, the other really integral message, I think, in the Blue Castle is how important it is to overcome your fears.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to
Absolutely.
let fear dominate your life.
Yes.
But to try to live with courage, whatever that means to you, however that looks like for you. And Jason sent in a lovely message about this theme. So let's listen to Jason's message now.
Hello, this is Jason from New Zealand. My favorite line in The Blue Castle is this: fear is the original sin. Almost all of the evil in the world has its origin in the fact that someone is afraid of something. The quote underpins how The Blue Castle is a metaphor for Valency's transformation to be the architect of her own life out in the countryside, to dream and bring to life a house with as yet undiscovered rooms, so to speak, where she can develop her own consciousness and agency. I also like how the quote and Valency's determination makes us reflect on how we might leap into the unknown if there is apparently 1 year left in our lives. I don't know exactly what I would do, but I hope I will be as courageous as Valency to not go gently into that good night. In the meantime, Valency's story invites us to live the most meaningful version of all the lives we could ever live. Miranda and Donna, thank you for the recommendation.
Oh, thank you, Jason.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I think it's very interesting because I think considering what a state of fear Valency's in, really, although it's a mistaken diagnosis that she's at death's door, so to speak, it could arrive any time. In fact, she may as well be dead in those early bits. You know, her life is like that horrible old scentless dried potpourri that she chucks out of the window when she gets her spirit up. But I think like it's really significant that you know, being so fearful effectively takes the life from you.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's why it's so sad at the start of the book.
It's a painful book for me at the beginning. Like I just feel for her so much.
Yeah, me too. And that you feel her pain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain there.
Yeah.
And it's all the more glorious then when she is able to totally transform everything. And only she can do that.
Exactly. It's herself, isn't it? And that even the transformation, it doesn't work just to the future, but as Laura said, it goes to the past. It changes even the backstory.
Yeah. And I know, I think that's so wonderful and beautifully described in the book. And like Jason says, it's a book that leaves you with a question. It does, I think, make you reflect on, is there anything that you're frightened of that maybe you should overcome, you know, overcome those fears about? Could you live more courageously somehow? And it made me think of the very famous Mary Oliver quote, you know, something like, tell me, what is it that you will do with your one wild and precious life? It's something like that. I love those lines in one of her poems.
And Valency really embodies the wildness and the precious.
She really does. Yeah. So those lines just really ring through my head when I read this book. And I think it does pose that question to all of us. So I'd love to hear if the book inspires you in some way, small or big, to overcome a fear, or maybe just
live life to the fullest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Because it definitely does inspire me.
Yeah.
For that. But thank you so much to everyone who read along with us this month. Again, thank you to everyone who sent in a voice message. It was really wonderful to hear from all of you. Last month, I said that we were taking June and July off from the Comfort Book Club. So the next book is an August read, in that we will discuss it in August. And that is All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, one of our all-time
Yes, and how appropriate
books.
because of where we live too.
Exactly.
Yes.
A Yorkshire book, one of its most famous books.
Yes.
And such a favourite.
Yes.
It's a bit of a longer read, so I thought it was a good one to choose to read over this summer together. Hopefully we can all enjoy engrossing ourselves in this. I also absolutely love the audiobook version as well. So I hope you'll all enjoy reading this this summer, and we'll have the discussion in August. And I am also changing the discussion days to be a Sunday, the last Sunday of the month, because it has made it just really a difficult week for me whenever we've had to do the Comfort Book Club, because that has meant I've had to get 2 videos out in a week, and it's just been really hard. And it's very important to us that we keep enjoying
exactly
the Comfort Book Club as well as hopefully everyone else. So it will change to a Sunday discussion day. I'm really excited about this, really looking forward to it, and I hope you enjoy reading that this summer too. But thank you so much for watching, and extra big thanks to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last video. I really appreciated all of your support. So pleased that you're enjoying my bookshop guide that I gave in that last video. Look out for the Summer Commonplace book, which is coming really soon. I am hoping to finish it this weekend, but if not this weekend, then really soon. So look out for that. If you're on my newsletter list. If you're not, then I'll put a link so you can sign up and be on my newsletter list and get the Summer Commonplace book that will be out soon. But yes, thank you again so much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the Blue Castle in the comments, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.